What are the data on naps?
So for naps, we've done lots of different studies, and other colleagues have done these studies too. Naps can have some really great benefits. We found benefits for cardiovascular health, blood pressure, for example. We found benefits for levels of cortisol. We found benefits for learning and memory, and also emotional regulation.
How long are the naps typically in those studies?
Anywhere between 20 minutes to 90 minutes. Sometimes we like to use a 90-minute window so that the participant can have a full cycle of sleep, and therefore they get both non-REM and REM sleep within that time period. Then when we wake them up, we usually wait a period of time to get them past what we call sleep inertia, which is that kind of window of grogginess where you say to your better half, look, darling, please don't speak to me for the first hour after
anything right now.
After the first hour of waking up, I'm just not the best version of myself.
Right.
So we wait for that time period, and then we do some testing, and we've done some testing before and after, and we look at the change, and that's how we measure what was the benefit of naps. And the reason why we sometimes do 90 minutes, so that they get all of those stages of sleep, and then we correlate how much benefit did you get from the nap, and how much of that benefit was explained by what REM sleep you got, what deep sleep you got, what light sleep you got. So that's the only reason that we use that as an experimental tool. What we've also found is that naps of as little as 17 minutes can have some quite potent effects on, for example, learning. None of this is novel. NASA pioneered this back in the 1990s. And during the missions, they were experimenting with naps for their astronauts. And what they found was that naps of little as 26 minutes improved mission performance by 34% and improved daytime alertness by 50%.
Fantastic.
And it birthed what was then called the NASA nap culture throughout all terrestrial NASA staff during that time period. So it's long been known that naps can have a benefit. Naps, however, can have a double-edged sword. There is a dark side to naps. And it comes back to our story of adenosine and sleep pressure. The longer we're awake, the more of that sleep pressure adenosine that we build up. But what I didn't tell you is that when we sleep, the brain gets the chance to essentially clear out that adenosine. And after about 16 hours of wakefulness, and then after about 8 hours of sleep seems to be able to allow the brain to decrease its adenosine levels back to normal. And so naturally, we should start to wake up, which also aligns with your circadian rhythm. And those are two separate processes. But with about 8 hours of good quality sleep, 7 to 9 hours for the average adult, we are free of all of that adenosine. We've evacuated it essentially out of the brain, and we wake up naturally feeling refreshed. The reason that naps can be potentially dangerous is that when you nap, you are essentially opening the valve on the pressure cooker of sleep pressure. And some of that sleepiness is lost by way of the nap. So for some people, and not all people, and you're a great example of this, some people, however, if they are struggling with sleep at night and they nap during the day, it makes their sleep problems even worse. So for people with insomnia, we typically advise against napping. And the advice is, if you can nap regularly and you don't struggle with sleep at night, then naps are just fine. But if you do struggle with sleep, stay away from naps. If you are going to nap, try to limit your naps. Try to cut them off a bit like sort of caffeine, maybe, 8 to sort of 12 hours, maybe not that, far off. Maybe sort of 7 to 6 hours is a good rule of thumb. Try not to nap essentially late in the afternoon. And if you do take a nap and you want to maintain you don't want to have that grogginess hangover that can happen after a full night of sleep for the first hour, try to limit it to about 20, 25 minutes. And that way you don't go down into the very deepest stages of sleep, which if I wrench you out of with an alarm, then you just kind of you almost feel worse for the first hour.